Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's your favorite paranormal investigator. My name's Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight, and on today's show, we are going to talk about the latest video dump. Now, a lot of folks have been talking about it, I know, mostly focused on the visuals, but I was going through a specific CIA release that was included in the dump about the Scientific Advisory Panel in 1953, the beginning of 1953, I might add, regarding the UFO phenomenon and what they thought of it and what they were thinking about, and all that fun stuff. And they acknowledged a lot of interesting things, but they also kind of, for lack of a better term, backtracked on a lot of these things. So, with that said, I'm going to give everyone a chance to jump into the chat just a little bit. Just make sure we got people watching. Hey, hello to the three of you online right now. At least on my channel. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate seeing you here. Let me show you what I got so far. And I've been going through this document highlighting various, very interesting things. And we'll go there and take a look at it right now. And, whoops, adding to the stage. There it is. So let's start at the top. First off, this thing has a list of people. Redundant. I mean, dude, this is a list of people not only looking at this, and I'll let you, maybe if you want to take a moment to take a picture, go ahead. I like that they crossed out secret security on every single one of these documents. I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, I get it, but this is composed between the 14th and 17th of January 1953. And as we go to the top of the, they're just looking at a lot of pieces of evidence. That's what they cited. More highlighted stuff. This is basically the start of the analysis. And then they have all these memos. And some of these names might look up. Darn it, I didn't mean to do that. Might look a little familiar. Can you say magic? Or magi? Or what's that called? No, I'm blanking on it. But, yeah. The magic magi guys. Or I think one or two of them were listed in this here, if I remember correctly. And I didn't really have time to research who was on there. But, I mean, this is the special assistant to the president who got this in March. So they were compiling this thing, letting various tiers of the government look at this document. And this isn't that unusual for government operation, federal government operation, or even state government operation. But look at all this distribution stuff they had to go through down here. And then Secretary of the Intelligence Advisory Committee, he had to get a thing, and he had to send it to Federal Civil Defense Administration, which I found very, very interesting. I think Val Peterson is also on the Majestic. That was the term I was looking for, Majestic 12 thing. So a lot of old Majestic 12 guys are on here. And, you know, Vice Chair of the National Security Resources Board, I think, which would later become the NSA or part of the NSA. I mean, it is just massive. Secretary of Intelligence Advisory Committee. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. The levels of, and you know, and it keeps getting earlier until we finally get way down here to this purple ditto copy, old school ditto copy version of what happens. So let's, you know, I think we'll pick it up here. This is the actual report of the scientific panel on unidentified flying objects, UFOs. We call them, or some call them UAPs today. I personally cannot stand that term. It's unnecessary, in my personal estimation. UFO works just fine. 9 times out of 10, they're flying in it anyway. We have a separate thing for the ones in that water, USO, unidentified submerged objects. So calling them aerial phenomena is just ridiculous, I think. And why the reasoning behind it, the change, as I recall, was freaking no. Come on. Anyway, the first opening sentence really kind of is standardized speak for these reports, pursuant to the request of the Assistant Director for Scientific Intelligence and, the undersigned panel of scientific consultants has met to evaluate any possible threat to national security posed by unidentified flying objects, in their quotes, flying saucers, which I find funny, and to make recommendations thereon. And they do have a few things. This panel received evidence. They received a lot of evidence, and they, and the evidence they received were from various intelligence agencies, they go on to say, including the Air Technical Intelligence Center, which was their primary, as they say here, their primary thing. Oh, look, I highlighted that for you. But let me zoom in a little bit so you can read what I'm reading. But point 2 of this is, as a result of its consideration, the panel concludes that the evidence presented on an unidentified flying object shows no indication that these phenomena constitute a direct physical threat to national security. Okay, so they say that initially. And then they kind of do a weird pivot toward the end of the report. And the report isn't that long. The panel further concludes, A, that the continued emphasis on the reporting of these phenomena, I can't talk today, of these phenomena, does in these perilous times. This is 1953. So, to your history on what was happening then, I think we just entered the Korean War. We were starting to see the very, very beginnings of some sort of counterculture developed, especially in the beatniks, poetry guys, all black, sunglasses all the time. They snapped all their applause and wrote lots of poetry. Beat poetry came out of that. But they say these perilous times result in the threat, but a continued emphasis on the reporting of these phenomena because they weren't too sure. In these perilous times result in a threat to the orderly function of the protective organs, interesting terminology, of the body politic. That's kind of flowery and right in line with 1953 as far as beat poetry goes, or poetry in general. I mean, it's concise and it really kind of locks down their thought, what they were thinking. They were afraid that it would influence individuals within the body politic, the chairmans and, senators and congressmen and president himself and all that stuff. They say something to the effect about clogging the channels of communication with irrelevant reports, but, and how some of these imagined ideas, and I'm going to do a quick look up on here because I want to know when the Hopkinsville event, UFO is an alien event, happened. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is prior to Hopkinsville event, and would also, I don't know, I find that not only fascinating, but certainly almost kind of convenient, because that happened in August 21st, 1955. And they're worried about things, pushing things one way or another regarding hostile action. When it comes to alien stuff, in general, for my money, you know, we get. Hey, Sherry's on the line. How's it going, Sherry? How's it been? Good to have you in here, Sherry. Let me know what you think about all this. If you have anything you want to chime in with, I'd love to have your input, and I'll be happy to share it with everyone. But so they're worried about, you know, the cultivation of a morbid national psychology in which skillful, hostile propaganda, which is interesting, could induce hysterical behavior and harmful distrust of duly constituted authority. So basically, they're telling you, or telling you ultimately the president and all those looking at this, that the scientific opinion is, at least as far as this board goes, and like I said, I'd say at least a third of them were about to be, if they weren't already, Majestic 12 guys. Because it was 53. When did Majestic 12 get formed? Let's see. That's another one. When did Majestic 12 get formed? Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I forgot about that, actually. Okay, so having these Majestic 12 guys on these various panels makes absolute sense because, and I will see if I can share this with you. Not right this second, I can't. But it was formed on September 24th, 1947, under a classified executive order from the president. Wow. Truman, I might add. That's Harry Truman who put that out there. So we already have some Majestic 12 guys from my rough and fuzzy recollection on the panels for this stuff. And then they're saying here, we're worried that it may override our authority if there's too much hysterical behavior or panic or whatever, you know, and not like 2 years later we're going to have Hopkinsville. So that's something to consider. So they go on to say that they need to effectively strengthen the national facilities for the timely recognition, and I'm going to highlight that one, timely recognition and appropriate handling of true indications of hostile action. Whoops, they didn't let me. Okay, there we go. I'm going to highlight that. And to minimize contaminant dangers alluded to the above. The panel further recommends that national security agencies take immediate steps to strip the UFO of the special status they have been given, which I find just weird, man. I mean, and the aura of mystery they have unfortunately acquired. And they also recommend that the national security agencies institute policies of intelligence training and public education designed to prepare the material defenses and the morale of the country to recognize most promptly and to react most effectively to true indications of hostile intent or actions. So, on one hand, they're saying, I saw a weird look, and this happened in the 30s with the War of the Worlds radio broadcast. I think it was in rural, either Pennsylvania or rural New Jersey. Someone mistook a water tower for an alien pod that they described in a radio show. And they shot a water tower, so I guess they didn't want more of that happening. So they're also suggesting that these aims may be achieved by an integrated program. I think we're going to get into Blue Book here pretty quick. Actually, I think we're 1 year out from Blue Book. I think this may be in a precursor to getting that going. Designed to reassure the public... integrated program designed to reassure the public of the total lack of evidence. This sounds a lot like Blue Book. And immiscible, forces. This one, whatever inimical, inimical, got it, forces behind the phenomena. Yeah. Today's big word is imical. Say that 3 times fast. Forces behind the phone to train personnel to recognize and reject false indications quickly and effectively. Well, if everything's potentially gas from Venus or something like that, or swamp gas reflecting Venus, or whatever that ridiculous thing was, thermal inversion. I don't think so. Thermal inversion doesn't turn around and buzz the White House a couple of times. Anyway, and the strength of regular channels for the evaluation of and proper action to true indication of hostile measures. And here's everyone related to that. Associated Universities, interesting. California Institute of Technology. I didn't know we had the CIT. That's kind of cool, or at least we used to. Brookhaven National Labs, University of California. Okay. A state school. Interesting. And Johns Hopkins are represented in making this report and this recommendation. So, gosh, I mean, even this tiny little report that's only about 4 or 5 pages long, we get in, and this is just the various evidentiary pieces they looked at, reports from. I mean, that's the funny thing. The green fireball phenomenon, we all know about Project Twinkle. I mean, we all know about Project Pounce, and if you don't, please look them up. I'm really not diving into them if I can help it. But, and all of these things, look at what they had to look at. Motion picture films of sightings at Tremonton, Utah. Okay, we know about that too. And Great Falls, Montana. Yeah, there's been a lot of reports, orbs and stuff there. DIY things on how to make a fake UFO. Charts that put this at balloon launches by universities and other scientific entities. So they looked at a lot of stuff, and it seems to me, Kodachrome transparencies of polyethylene film balloons and bright sunlight showing high reflectivity. Yeah, dude, come on. I mean, yeah. So the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, well, at least blinking lights. Okay. So 7 through 15 have to do with either human-generated balloon launches or some sort of motion picture or DIY, make it yourself thing, or summary report of A9 selected. That's a key one right there. I'm going to highlight that for sure. Selected cases of sightings of various categories, formations, blinking lights, hovering. So they lumped 89 cases into one bullet point. This says to me they weren't really taking it seriously, or they didn't want to read through it, or they just glanced through it. I saw lights. And that's kind of what we got with dump number 1, which is why I kind of wanted to take a look at dump number 3. And to call them dumps, I'm sorry. I know that sounds like a poo reference. I'm not saying that. These are fantastic, and some of them are kind of mundane. But one thing they are is reports. Whether they were misidentifications or not, I think what they should have done is, or perhaps they did, just not officially as far as this thing goes, is do like a Venn diagram. Okay, we saw it. See, it just keeps going. 15, 16, more motion picture stuff. Oh, it's like, I passed off my... Look at all these members. It's just amazing. Still going. 2 pages of members. 2 pages of... So, Intelligence Advisory Committee on it. Okay, right. Transmit. This is just memorandums trying to get this out there to the various things, and it's kind of mundane, but I want you to look where they started. They started in January. If you look at Durant down here, I think he's another Majestic guy. And this is just, the panel. Okay, we already saw all this. And here's the more. Oh my God. See, they just, significant sightings. They took a look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I counted that, and maybe 9 cases. Lumped them all together and said, yeah, good enough. So, cases, about 15 others in less detail. The panel concluded that reasonable explanations could be suggested for most sightings. And by deduction scientific method, it could be induced given additional data that other cases might be explained in a similar manner. So they did a really haphazard job for a bunch of scientists. Or they were instructed to do a haphazard job. Or they had enough people on their panel that were perhaps, I'm going to say Majestic 12 again. Wow, we're getting conspiratorial here on Paranormal Insight. That suggests that they were guided. It's like, that's more of the same. People at the head of the table, so to speak, would probably divvy out certain reports. It's like, we don't need to look at that one. We don't need to look at that one. We don't look at this one. It's super boring, but speaks to a given phenomenon, but I bet it's fake-ish. So something tells me they were being spoon-fed certain things here, and that the scientists, the real scientists, I'll say, on this panel who weren't in the know, so to speak, were, like I said, being spoon-fed, or were spoon-feeding these other scientists. The real scientists, I'll call them. I may have misspoke there. What I tried to say was, at the head of this thing, I think were a bunch of Majestic 12 guys who spoon-fed the rest of the scientific panel all these different things and gave them the lesser interesting things, probably on purpose. Because if the 47 cover-up, Roswell incident is any indication, the flip-flopping that went on in the newspaper reports alone is nothing short of obvious, conspiratorial, certainly. And no one bothered to ask the question. And we were so, as a nation, we were super patriotic as we always should be, but we still have to always question things, I think. And this is coming from a former military guy, So being out there and seeing these things happen and reporting on them, and then having the story go, oh, you know what, we were wrong. All that stuff is a weather balloon. Can you believe that? And other things like this. Strange things in the sky had been recorded for hundreds of years. Okay, great acknowledgement. It appeared obvious that there were no single explanation for a majority of the things seen. And then they go on to say, in the presence of radar and we had radar and astronomical specialists on the panel. And they're confident, proved a value at once in their confident recognition of phenomena related to their fields. That is to say, they were able to explain away ancient reportings. Explain this one then. Ancient Rome, timeline, ancient Rome. And in the middle, I think it was well outside of Rome. Well, not outside, but I think it was definitely in the province surrounding Rome, or just Rome was its own province. But I'm saying really close to the capital. Suddenly, these silos open up, and not unlike they do today, but more like I think it was described as an iris of some sort, just opened up. Boom, and they said beams or columns launched out of these things and rocketed skyward. The reports don't mention fire or flame or anything like that. However, there were a few wood carvings converted to drawings that showed these things launching from the ground, from a circular impression in the ground. And they actually had fire represented at the back end. So it was kind of like a cruise missile today, back in Roman times. Whew. So explain that one, 1953 scientists. Now, one thing I think they got generally right, for my money anyway, is that the panel concluded unanimously that there was no evidence of a direct threat to national security in the object cited. Now, here's something interesting. Instances of the Foo Fighters were cited. Now, the Foo Fighters were little unexplained phenomena surrounding aircraft pilots during World War II in both European and Far East theaters of operation, wherein balls of light will fly near or with the aircraft and maneuver rapidly. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my sound effects there. They were believed to be electrostatic, similar to St. Elmo's fire, or electromagnetic phenomena that possibly light reflections from ice crystals in the air. Wow! Come on! Now we have the boogosphere. Actually, we have two of them now. Come on. But their exact cause of nature was never defined. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the Air Force reporting system was USOs. It was the panel. Here, I'm going to highlight this part, which is weird. This is according to the Air Force reporting system, it was the panel's opinion that some of the Air Force's concerned over corrected FOs, notwithstanding Air Defense Command anxiety over fast radar tracks, things cutting across the screens at unheard of speeds, was probably caused by public pressure. What? Come on, public pressure. Yeah, public pressure caused all these problems to pop up. No, public pressure wanted you to answer questions, and you finally hopped to it with Project Blue Book in a weird, not kind of way. I mean, come on. The result today, 1953, is that the Air Force has instituted a fine channel for receiving reports of nearly anything anyone sees in the sky and fails to understand. Which, for my money, is a way to pan it off, because they said earlier, that they want people trained to critically assess these unidentified flying objects. And I put that in quotes because that's their quotes. This has been particularly encouraged in popular articles on this and other subjects such as space travel. I'm going to highlight this because it's important. Space travel and science fiction. So they're saying the imagination of everyone around them is making them see things. How unstable was the human race in the 50s that this was happening? Mass hysteria is a joke. It's not even a real thing. Mass hysteria is mass witnessing. Any multiple psychological reports in esteemed psychological publishings, scientific publishings, even have stated that to be a fact. So in 1953, they probably thought that it was a thing. And now we know it was complete garbage. So something tells me, again, some of the Majestic 12 guys on this panel are steering the ship on this. So, and it goes on to say, the result of this mass receipt of low-grade reports, which tend to overload channels of communication that, I don't know why they're so concerned about that, with material quite irrelevant to hostile objects, fighter jets, for example, that might someday appear. The panel agreed, generally, that this mass of poor quality reporting contained little, if any, scientific data of value. I'm going to highlight that too, because that is just garbage. Quite the opposite, it was possibly dangerous in having a military service foster public concern in nocturnal meandering lights. Okay, so if you have a a jet out there flying around, one, you're going to hear it, especially in 1953. Our jet tech was loud, very loud. And, we were flying Sabres and the like, and I think maybe Starfighters. That's the name of the jet, not an actual starfighter. That type of thing, which was basically those poor pilots. Guys who fly F-18s and the like today are in way better shape than the Sabre pilots of the day, because basically they were straddling rockets and guiding them with a lot of luck and barely their metallurgy. Anyway, and engineering. Quite the opposite. It was possibly dangerous in having a military service foster public concern in nocturnal meandering lights. The implication being, since the interested agency was military, that the objects were or might be potential direct threats to national security. Okay, so, but if they have radar and it doesn't track with what they're seeing, okay, they have radar. They don't see it on their scopes, but they get a report about it. And granted, the range wasn't as great in 53, but I don't think it's too far diminished compared to today's. Certainly not sophisticated, but nonetheless. I don't know. That's a bad excuse in my personal estimation, even 1953. Accordingly, the need for de-emphasization, it made itself apparent. So, talk them down. Oh, it was, we're probably, kids are messing around with fireworks. That was a thing for a while, too, and that worked for almost a year as an explanation. Oh, we think it was fireworks, but I don't know. One got away and it didn't explode right. It went zigzag across the pond and then went straight. Yeah, because that happens. You'd hear it. You'd hear it. You'd hear it. You'd hear it. I'm sorry. I'm very animated about this because I don't like how our government and our so-called, intelligence services lied to us outright and encouraged everything else under their purview to follow the same thing. And, a lot of people, some people were even freaking jailed over this stuff because they wouldn't shut up about it. And so then became a national security concern and all that fun stuff. We've all heard those stories. It's freaking insane. Just freaking insane. Again, thanks to all two of you who are watching this. That's outstanding. Three of you, excuse me. Welcome. Again, if you have any questions for me, join me in the chat and I'll put that up. I actually created a banner for it because my brain was working today. There it is. So join me there and join the chat. And if you want to say hi or chew me out or tell me I'm a weirdo or whatever, be polite, please, because I will ban you. I'm not above doing that. But they were single-handedly, whether this report was the catalyst, because it's from the CIA, UAP. Okay, so this is a reclassified document that they kept under wraps for a long time. So, And then comments on a possible educational program are enumerated below. Wow. It was the opinion of Dr. Hope Robertson that the saucer problem had been found to be different in nature from the detection and investigation of German V-2 and V-2 guided missiles prior to their operation in World War II. In a 43-44 intelligence operation known as Crossbow, there was excellent intelligence by June 44 there was material evidence of the existence of said hardware versus, okay, that's a weak comparison. We think we saw loud things shooting in the sky. People, we've had rockets and fireworks and crap since the days of ancient China. I mean, that gunpowder is being traded on the Silk Road, for crying out loud. Come on. And suddenly so V1 and V2 missiles were, when they were being tested, were, oh, no, you didn't see that? Well, that's just more government cover-up. And why they talked about Crossbow, I don't even... Oh, man. So the layers of idiocy and so-called conspiracy, even this is designed to make one think, oh, maybe I misunderstood something. Because not until Jimmy Carter said, I saw something, I want to investigate it. And look how quick he was shut down. It was in the news forever. Or I don't think it died out for 6 months, maybe a year after he made the mention. But they bring all this crap to bear. So-called scientists, led by so-called scientists anyway, listen to this. So, because they didn't shoot the UFO down, listen to this. Look at this. The absence of any hardware resulting from unexplained UFO sightings lends to a will-of-the-wisp nature to the ATIC problem. And forgive me, ATIC eludes me at this moment. I think it was mentioned earlier. Intelligence. Active intelligence. Active. I can't remember now. I'm so sorry. But I know it. I heard it before. I think it's an intelligence thing. The results of their investigation to date strongly indicate that no evidence of hostile act or danger exists. Okay, just because people see something doesn't mean it has to be dangerous, and that's kind of what the military, industrial, whatever, was really chiefly concerned about, and still are concerned about today. I think by putting this stuff out there, okay. By putting this stuff out there, yeah, they're being semi-transparent, but look how far back the catch-up to now, with the exception of a few modern reports during wartime operations, and a few reports during, I still haven't seen anything regarding the Afghanistan Giants. Hundreds of servicemen across multiple countries saw these things. Where's that report? Just because it wasn't a UFO? Don't think it wouldn't end up in this type of file, too. But I digress. Let's get back to UFOs. The results of their investigations to date strongly indicate that no evidence of hostile act or danger exists. Granted, that's always been the case, with the exception of those things exploding from the ground in Roman times. And we've seen paintings of sky battles with these weird ships, including beams and crosses and the orbs. So, come on. With 2, maybe 3, I almost said registered. I was trying to say recognizable. I guess, I don't know what I was trying to say. My brain's just a little. I'm so fed up with this. I get so damn emotional when I get into this stuff, and I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying not to be angry at this stuff because it happened, 80 years ago? But you can see how the groundwork was laid to make everyone seem crazy in their reporting, and how they trained, by their own admission, trained or would train those receiving reports, investigating reports, all the way down from the MPs to agents to local police. This guideline, it's like, oh, just write it off. Yeah, oh, look at that, strange lights in the sky. Pfft, yeah, freaking Martians are landing. What's the matter with you, buddy? And then, call them cuckoo and move on. Because they didn't shoot down a UFO. Man, can you imagine if that kept happening? You want evidence? Whatever. I don't think a shotgun could take it down, but, I'm, as an example, very, very cartoonish example, I might add, but, I mean, come on. Okay, listen to this. Oh my gosh, this is just infuriating. And again, I'm a little emotional about this because, I thought I was part of a system with some more integrity than this. And this is in the leadership thing, not the actual military personnel, I might add. Furthermore, a current reporting system would have little value in the case of detection of any enemy attack by conventional aircraft or guided missiles under the conditions hardware. So because, again, they didn't shoot down every UFO the civilians saw, there's no evidence. Never mind, Roswell happened, and then Roswell happened 100 billion different times across the globe, across multiple decades, even way before Roswell. Roswell was just the first one that leaked out to the news first. Really. I mean, come on. Artifacts of extraterrestrial origin. Okay. I'll say this. This is semi-encouraging of the day. It was interesting to note that none of the members of the panel were loath to accept that the Earth might be visited by extraterrestrial intelligent beings of some sort someday. What they did not find was any evidence that related to the objects cited to be space travelers. Well, it's not anyone else on this planet. Reverse engineering didn't really start till the whole Roswell thing happened, and some say the Roswell craft was the first reverse engineered craft, and that's why it went down. Whether it was struck by lightning or controlled by a bunch of humans taking a telepathically controlled ship for a flight for the first time. And then someone would say, well, Tim, where do the alien bodies in that crash come from? Well, they're probably being supervised. If that's the case. I mean, that's completely just, I'm just kind of spitballing on that. If I'm drawing some conclusions, but I think they're logical conclusions. And I'll expound on that. Why not? So, okay. One, Roswell, the crash. Bad crash, too. This thing does a river skip. Rivers don't skip over a road. A little minor road on this guy's property, and everything is scattered everywhere. A few small fires. They recover bodies. The military's all over it. Seals the scene. So, Tim, if there were humans there, and there were aliens there, why were there humans there in the first place? Were they being mid-abduction and they got hit by lightning. That's a common thing. It's a pretty common thought. Me and Joe tend to think that that's ridiculous. Joe Montaldo, I might add. Because if you're if you're a spacefaring race and you travel through the galaxy, the solar system, whatever, what have you. Okay, let's say the galaxy and various solar systems, you're going to encounter all kinds of radiation, solar storms, micrometeors, stuff like that. You're going to have a pretty resilient hull, assuming you don't have some Star Trek style navigational deflector to push all the stuff off your ship anyway, make it go around you. Lightning could have overloaded said shield. Okay, I'll grant you that. But if we're going to follow that humans were flying this thing as an experiment, first draft, if you will, of a reverse engineered craft, with these alien buddies of ours riding ersatz shotgun slash supervisor role in a supervisory role, couple things could have happened. Humans didn't follow all the procedures. Oh, when you do this, when you go into liftoff, you have to activate the deflector shield. So, for lack of a better term, I'm borrowing from science fiction. And maybe they didn't. So they're left vulnerable, including lightning strikes. That could be an idea. That could happen. But that idea gets shot down because, according to Bob Lazar himself, there are a lot of redundancies built into these craft. And to have a human forget to hit a switch, mentally or otherwise, would not track. In fact, according to Lazar's observations, not direct experience, mind you, but observations, a lot of the stuff, with the exception of actual navigation, it's like, I want to go to the moon, as an example. This thing would fly to the moon. Boom, no problem. I want to go to Alpha Centauri. Boom, fly to Alpha Centauri, no problem. But it would take care of all the other redundant, little tiny things on its own. It had its own little micro artificial intelligence, or intelligence, artificial otherwise. If you ever seen his mock-up, which others have backed up, by the way, the computer core was about the size of a head. And I don't think they ever cracked it open, but there was suspicion that because there were, I think they said, biological filaments, not unlike nerve endings, that there could have been some sort of biological or techno-biological combo instrument, not unlike a computer system or a brain running said ship. So, consider that. Again, big hello to Sherry. Thanks for joining me in the chat. I'm sorry there's not a lot more people in the chat. Get on here, people. We've been on for almost an hour already. But, yeah. Okay. The panel could not accept any of these cases cited from him because they were raw, unevaluated reports. Okay. Okay, look at me go. Blue Book was already in effect because Foret's background as an aeronautical engineer and technical intelligence officer could not be cited. He was with Blue Book for 15 months. So Blue Book started earlier than I originally remembered. And they couldn't accept his cases because they were raw and unevaluated reports. Eyewitness reports, in other words. And this is regarding alien stuff. And we wouldn't get Hopkinsville until 61, I think. Is that what it said? Yeah. Excuse me, 55. Oh, yeah. You're about to eat those words, guy. Anyway. So, just insane. I'm very sorry. Let me mute that so you don't have to keep hearing that go off. There we go. Terrestrial explanations of the sightings were suggested in some cases. I'll highlight this. Oh, nope. In some cases and in others. In others, the time the sighting was so short as to cause suspicion of visual impressions. You're seeing things, buddy. Okay, yeah, if they were 8 sheets to the wind when they called it in, okay, great. They probably were seeing things. I mean, and it's not actual hallucinations. You know what? I was with a buddy once. We were at the beach, had a nice fire going, and I'm not much of a drinker anyway, so I had a beer or two. But this guy was, oh, it's beer 30. Oh, it's beer 45. You know, that type of thing. Oh, it's beer o'clock, and and so on and so forth. So he was about six beers deep. And he says, like, he's seeing something over there. You see that? It's kind of wavy and weird. And it turned out he had like a mote in his eye. You ever get a mote in your eye because you're so dehydrated? Starts producing really thick white stuff, and I saw it in his eye. It's like, dude, you got crap all over your eye. You're just dog tired. You should go to sleep. I'm not tired yet. Glug glug glug. Anyway, so visual impressions, yes, it does happen. It doesn't mean they're making up flashing lights. It doesn't mean they're making up passes and odd maneuvers. It's irksome. The stupidity of the past is irksome, and I get why kids these days just want to rewrite history. Unfortunately, we're left with the gullible and the stupid and the lesson informed ancestors or predecessors of our time. Still, times like this, I wish my water would vodka. Let me tell you what. Not that I drink vodka, but I don't drink at all, really. But yeah, this angers me, and I need to calm down. It was noted by Dr. Okay. Okay. It was noted. I'd almost highlight this, but it's ridiculous, so I'm not going to give it the time. It was noted by Dr. Goudsmit, probably a Project Paperclip guy, and others that extraterrestrial artifacts, if they did exist, are no cause for alarm. Rather, they are in the realm of natural phenomenon, subject to scientific study. That means if you find a ray gun, and it does what ray guns do, not that anyone has, wouldn't that be cool? At least no one's reported it anyway. It's not a ray gun until a scientist says it's a ray gun. As he says here, just as cosmic ray guns were at the time of their discovery 23 years ago. Yeah. Look at me go. I must have subconsciously read that or something. Or I remembered it from last time I read this. Interesting counterpoint. This was an attitude that which Dr. Robinson did not concur, as he felt that such artifacts would be of immediate and great concern not only to the U.S., but to all countries. Nothing like a common threat to unite peoples. Wow! Look at that. I forgot about that. Golly. And here's whether he's the first one to really put that out there, this is the first time earliest I've seen it on paper. Maybe there are books and stuff. I'm not the biggest reader in the world, but golly. And then Dr. Page comes in, the conceited Dr. Page, from my estimation, noted that present astronomical knowledge of the solar system makes the existence of intelligent beings, as we know the term, elsewhere other than Earth, extremely unlikely, you arrogant, ignorant dumbass. Sorry, Doc, that, nothing against your oh, come on. And the concentration of their attention by any controllable means confirmed to any one continent of the Earth, quite preposterous. Well, it wasn't just us. Apparently, Dr. Page wasn't in the know. He wasn't at the head of the board like the Majestic 12 guys. Golly. I mean, narrow. He's a astronomical guy? Have you looked through a oh my gosh. Oh my god. That is just maddening. Just maddening. And then they cite the Trenton, Utah sightings. Oh my gosh. And this gets bizarre. So there were films, about 1,600 frames. Thought to be excellent documentary footage. The panel studied these films, the case history, ATIC's interpretation, which again, I forget what that means, and received a briefing by representatives of the United States Navy Photo Interpretation Laboratory on their analyses of the film. This team had expended, at the Air Force's request, approximately 1,000 man-hours on 1,600 frames of film. If I'm doing the conversion in my head right, it's about 3 minutes at 24 frames a second. Right? Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's just say yes. That's kind of a guess, kids. I haven't shot film in 1,000 years, so it's all digital these days. It was the opinion of okay. 1,000 man-hours of professional sub-professional time in the prep of the graph plots of individual frames of the films, apparently showing relative motion of the objects, variation of the light intensity. It was the opinion of PIL representatives, which also eludes me. Oh, so sorry. Which also eludes me. I don't remember what PIL stands for. Yet the objects cited were not birds, balloons, or aircraft, were not reflections because there was no blinking while passing through 6 degrees of arc, and were therefore self-luminous. Plots of motion and variation in light intensity of the objects were displayed. While the panel members were impressed by the evident enthusiasm, industry, and extent of effort of the PIL team, they cannot accept the conclusions reached. That this was legitimate footage. Let's see if we can find it. Forgive me while I... Trenton, Utah. Okay. Let me look that up. Trenton, Utah footage of UFO. Okay. Excuse me, Treadmonton. Okay. Here it is. I pause, and I'll bring it up here on the whatchamacallit. So let me remove that and share a different screen. Excuse me, I need to make that. Yeah. Are we having fun? Yeah, there we go. Excellent. There it is. That, and I will share, and here we go. We're going to watch it together. This is the Trenton, Utah footage, and it is muted because I don't know what else is on there, and I don't want swearing to pop up. Okay. He's going to zoom out, and we're looking at these formations in the sky here. I think I remember this. This is similar to what they see in Mexico City, like all the friggin' time. Notice the blinking lights. Oh my, we've seen this before. These are triangles that we see all the time. I hope this is showing up. I wish they had the stabilized version. Man, not birds. Okay, top secret. Yeah. Standard time. These guys are going to talk about it. And, okay. And then that's it. then they show it again. Okay, we won't watch that. But that is the footage they're talking about. Crazy. I mean, granted, it's jerky. I'd like to see it pass through a stabilization algorithm. But, okay, Sarah, tell you what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, all three of you who are watching, and the thousands and thousands who are listening, or who will join us in post, after the show's over, live. That's fantastic, too. Honestly, I have zero complaints. I love you guys being here, just taking in what I'm putting down. And I mean that almost literally, because I'm very mad at these scientists right now from 1953. So let's calm the waters a little bit and take a little break. We're going to do some station identification, a couple of commercials, and we'll be back in just about 2 minutes. This is the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 in the Gulf Coast. UPRN-talkradio.com. Esoteric programming at its finest.
Long ago in the ancient world, the Trebus Omnes Lux, later known as the Tridents, were celebrated heroes, defenders of humanity against unspeakable monsters. Today, they continue that sacred duty in secret, hunting the dark evils that lurk just beyond the shadows. They are the Trident of Light.
Introducing Story TV, enabling true creative freedom for independent creators. Search an ever-growing library of fantastic festival winners, including Blaney Tucker's Ghost and the Monster Hunters of the TOL. Free to enjoy at lower resolutions. Pay $5 per month for 1080 and full K presentations to support the artists you enjoy. Your monthly contribution actually goes to the filmmakers themselves. Support independent film. Support Story TV. Check out our Patreon. Get deeper behind-the-scenes insights. Also, tips into being a better paranormal investigator and other fascinating content. Follow us on Instagram at paranormal.insight. Stay informed on upcoming shows, see what paranormal trends we're following, and help us reach 50,000 followers by liking, following, and sharing. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube at paranormal_insight. Click the Live tab to see our latest videos. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's still your favorite paranormal investigator, Tim Sudano here, and Heidi has joined us in the chat. Welcome, Heidi. I hope your class went quite well. I know you had a class today, which meant you couldn't join us from the jump. We've been talking about specifically a single report from the Scientific Advisory Panel on UFOs in 1953. This is a CIA document that was completely released, and as I've been telling everyone who's been watching and listening, I am not happy at all with the dumbfounding stupidity or naivete, I should say, of 1953 science. That is to say, I'm not happy. I mean, there's no other way to really put it. I have my criticisms of them, and I'm starting to better at least understand why a lot of the young people today want to rewrite our history, because it's a little embarrassing and flummoxing and all that fun stuff. But we can only move forward. We can't time travel yet and smack these people around for being idiots. But again, as I said at the very beginning, I think these people associated with this report were being led. Yeah. Heidi's with me. All right. Well done, sister. I should have wore a hat today. My hair's all over the place. I need to give myself another trim. What's left of my hair anyway. But I digress. Let's get back into the report. Basically, they said so far that that because no one had shot down and or somehow rendered a UFO and or an extraterrestrial person. They couldn't confirm it. Never mind, they'd swarm it like they did in 47 and bury it. Probably more effectively than they did at the Roswell thing anyway. Yeah. And now we have this thing, and I just went over it, where they went over the Tremonton, Utah sighting. And maybe I should show that again. Can I share that screen? No, I'm going to have to stop it and go back into it. Okay, well, I'll do that. Tremonton, Utah footage. There it is. Yep. Utah UFO footage. UFO. Oops, I can't. There we go. There it is. This is the Delbert Newhouse footage, and allow me to pause. And I will show this to everyone once again because I think, whoops, as soon as I hit the right buttons, I can. Wow. Tim and technology. I used to be so good at this stuff too. So let me, I hit the wrong button. I meant to do that. I did. Good times, Tim. Good times. Okay. Here we go. So this is the Tremonton and Newhouse footage from Utah, sighting in Utah. Reviewed by the Navy, reviewed by the Air Force, and reviewed by an independent scientific panel specializing in film and photography, who all said this is legit. Let's take another watch. Whoops. And we'll just go a few minutes into it because it's not very long. I want you to look at the white dots. Maybe I'll pause it when we see them. But you're going to see something very familiar. Yeah, see him there? Maybe a little bit. Maybe if I zoom, I can't zoom in slightly. But it'll get clearer in a sec. Some guy's doing this with his 8mm camera, or maybe 16. But look at that. Look at those dots showing up. Those are flying in formation. And you can tell they're pretty high up because they keep disappearing. But look at the dots here and here. I paused it, P.S. I'm doing that part. And, and they all come back and said, this isn't reflection, this isn't birds, this isn't planes. This is something way different happening. And it gets a little stabler. Look at the maneuvers on that. That's just crazy. Yeah, look at that. And this reminds me of a lot of stuff they saw in Mexico City in the 90s. I mean, prolifically, right over Mexico City, 10, 20, 30 of these things just dancing around the sky because there's got nothing better to do that day. Let's put on a show for the humans. Anyway, so this is Tremonton, USO. This is the new quest. What does he call it? New. Okay, there we go. It's all over. But, I mean, we saw triangles, and we saw swarms, and we saw all kinds of crazy things up there. So, draw your own conclusions, I guess. But they said that footage, despite all those entities, including two of their own, the Navy and the Air Force, coming back and saying, that's legit stuff that this guy filmed. They said, oh, sorry, we couldn't draw a conclusion. God, that's aggravating. That is so aggravating. Is it wrong that I want to get a time machine on my hands, go back and just slap these guys stupid? Probably. But they deserve it? Absolutely. Again, but maybe not. So no one's trusting me with that technology, I guess. So they went through, they did the 1600 frames. It's about 2 or 3 minutes. Like I said, hey, I was right about that. The filmmaker got it right. He knew how to count old school film frames in his head. And I'm not a math guy at all. So let's move on. This analysis is very fascinating. So PIL, Air Force, Navy, they all said, Semi-spherical objects can readily produce a reflection. Okay, come on. Yeah. This is all complete garbage. They're just saying, they're trying to explain it away, and they can't. And then they cited something that was similar seen in the Great Falls area. I said, no, we can't. Look at the jitter. It's like, dude, the guy's doing this with that 8mm zoomed in all the way. You do better, pompous jerk. Okay, so they couldn't confirm it, but the panel concluded, these freaking guys, again, I think led by Magi guys, Majestic guys. The panel noted that the cost of technical manpower effort required to follow up and explain every one of 1,000 or more reports received through channels each year about 1900 and 1952 could not be justified. Granted, that's a huge expense. However, I submit, and maybe that's why we have the cell phones now. Okay. These little boxes are probably gonna, they track you like crazy, don't get me wrong. But, and they do. Apple and Google and whoever else puts these things out are all under multiple, lawsuits for that. But the government likes to track folks, so we do. Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, panel. Okay, granted, you cannot, but can you? How hard is it to issue an airman with an 8mm camera? Get him a little training on. Follow these birds and make sure you don't keep them in the center of frame the whole time. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to take a day and a half, maybe 2-3 days to train him up on it? Yeah, and then he's ready to rock. Is the phenomenon going to show up in the exact same spot? No. Not usually. I digress. Let us move on. Okay. It was felt that there will always be sightings for which complete data is lacking. Well, duh. So you put some effort into it. And because of that, disproportionate effort, yeah, I get it. That's typical military and government speak for we don't have the money or the interest, apparently. Okay. Educational training programs should have a major purpose in the elimination. There we go. That's important. The educational or training program, I guess post Blue Book, if not during Blue Book, as apparently it was, should have major purpose of elimination of popular feeling that every sighting, no matter how poor the data, must be explained in detail. I don't think that's a small thing to ask. At all. He goes on, the report goes on to say attention should be directed to the requirement among scientists that a new phenomena, to be accepted, must be completely and convincingly documented. Well, quit covering stuff up. The radio program worked for a reason. They duplicated existing media stuff. And that's why it worked. Were the people duped? That's the only news they had. Was radio transmissions when you do a play and you tune in late to it. And you're mimicking these radio things. Yeah, people are going to fall for it, man. I like to see CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, any of them, do a mock UFO invasion thing. Cut into an existing program. Don't tell anyone what it's about. Because that's what happened. About 80 to 90% of the people tuned in 5 minutes late. They missed the intro. And they freaked out because they heard radio reports. And now coming to you from, just like they did back in the day. So, and some say that's what's going to happen anyway. They're going to cut in. I haven't seen the Disclosure movie yet, but apparently they do stuff like that. But I should see that for this channel and do a little thing, huh? But anyway, if someone was as a means of entertainment going to show the first 5 minutes of a regularly scheduled program, then chop it off in with what appears to be very realistic reporting of a phenomena, a UFO landing or an attack or something like that, War of the World style, let's say, and maybe you kick it up a notch too. You put actual explosive sounds or, pyrotechnics that everyone can hear in a given area. Oh, I'm hearing those reports too. Because we got these things now. People are going to get eyewitness stuff, and maybe you can get in and program these things to see whatever it is you want. Lord knows you can actually create very nice visual effects just on your phone. Now they're pre-recorded. But, sorry, the chat caught my attention there for a sec. Yeah, so, you could technically show people whatever it is they want to see. I can't see it, but my phone can. They must be cloaked or something like that. And, it spins on from there. Oh, boy. In other words, this page concludes, the burden of proof is on the citer, not the explainer. So they do, at least in 1953, want you to shoot ET, bring a saucer in, and hold a press conference before you even notify the government. Okay. Let me see. The OSI makes an appearance. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Misidentification. Now here's, okay, listen. UFOs don't make sounds typically. Jets sure do. I almost swore. See, I'm so worked up, I'm forgetting the rules. Misidentifications of actual enemy artifacts by defense personnel. A trained military personnel are trained to recognize enemy aircraft or enemy vehicles in general. They're trained. Take it from me, I was in the training. Okay? To make that mention is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. I'm very upset with 1953 right here. Okay, here we go. I've mentioned this before. Mass hysteria is a myth. It's not real. Anyone who believes it is an idiot. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but even mass hypnosis. The thing about a mass or a group of people, they all have to see and hear and experience the exact same thing, which cannot be that easily replicated unless you stick them all in the movie theater. And we, up until relatively right about now, we haven't had that technology to put up a very realistic illusion from the millions of people and say, oh, it was mass hysteria. Okay, millions is too much, but hundreds of thousands or thousands of people. say, we made you all think there was a brontosaurus walking across Main Street. Ha 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 ha. See how easy it is to fool you. But they're saying here, the subjectivity of public to mass hysteria and greater vulnerability to possible enemy psychological warfare is an issue, is a potential danger. When you say, I saw a UFO, now there are the occasional people who are, and I'm sorry if that was insensitive, but having been called one of them, I think I have a little bit of authority over that. Mass hysteria is a myth. That's all there is to it. I said it before, psychologists and scientists and other people who study this type of thing have put out article after article after article in the last 10 to 15 years, decade and a half, citing this. And it took that long to put it into print because the powers that be wanted us to believe that it was a possibility. It is not. Unless we're all watching the exact same TV program, we're all blitzed with some sort of hypnotic mumbo jumbo or whatever. Perhaps that might be doable, but I mean, you're dealing with a lot of people with a lot of different brains and all that fun stuff. Although not the concern of the CIA, the first two of these problems, and I will recite them: misidentification, overloading of emergency support channels, may seriously affect the air defense intelligence system and the reporting systems, in other words, because they're calling Air Force bases directly and should be studied by experts, possibly under the ADC, which eludes me. I don't think it's an actual thing anymore. It got absorbed by something else. We'll call that an intelligence something or other. American something. If UFOs become discredited in reaction to the flying saucer scare, okay, now they're calling it psychological. They're calling it a psyop. Or if the reporting channels are saturated with false and poorly documented reports, poor reporting on the part of the local LEOs, law enforcement officers, our capability of detecting hostile activity will be reduced. So chiefly in 1953, they were worried about either a Nazi resurgence or a communist surge, because they had taken over by 53 in Russia and Korea and a few other places. Cuba, I think. Pretty sure, actually. And so they were worried about MiGs and such flying overhead and being misidentified. What do you mean I saw a UFO? Okay, did it make a noise? How hard is it to ask that question? Did it make a noise? Did you hear thruster or jet activity? I mean, man. Add a note to your little script, man. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. What's the cost? Maybe $500 in 1953 money? Drop in a bucket even back then. Unconscionable. And we get to listen to this dumbass Dr. Page. Competent screening or filtering of report to say, hang this guy, man. He's an ass. He's an ass. Page probably discovered heart surgery or something like that too, but that's, and he's an astrophysicist. Okay. I digress. I'm not here to pass judgment, but I am, because I'm angered. I'm very upset in 1953. Geographic locations of unexplained sightings, 1952 only. So their information's a year old going into this. Was examined by the panel. This map showed clusters in certain strategic areas, such as Los Alamos. This might be explained by the basis of a 24-hour watchful guard and awareness of security measures near such a, On the other hand, there has been no sightings in the vicinity of sensitive related AE establishments, while AE, aerial something, I'm sorry, my knowledge base is not accessible currently. AE establishments, while there were occasionally multiple cases of unexplained sightings in non-strategic areas. Yeah, they didn't hit air bases that much, except to knock out their nuclear power. I joke and I laugh now, but that was scary. I mean, shutting down an entire nuclear arsenal on multiple continents. I mean, come on. Just insane. Now can find no ready explanation for these clusters. Well, okay, because they're not looking at the geography. Anyway, they didn't have the insight we do now. The panel, under the heading of instrumentation to obtain data, the panel was of the opinion that the present ATIC program. Okay, this is ATIC. Right. This is the predecessor to Arrow. Wave 53, predecessor to Arrow. Sorry, I didn't put that together until now. Program places 100 inexpensive 35mm stereo cameras in the hands of various airport control tower operators. That would be great. And they never implemented it, did they? Would probably produce little value. Yeah, see? Yeah. 100 inexpensive. They weren't even willing to drop a couple $1,000s on some 35mm cameras. Consumer cameras. I mean, it's not like they got the massive lenses or anything like that, like the film cameras did back in the day. However, it was recognized that such action would tend to allay public concern. Well, in the subject until an educational program had taken effect, which says to me, re-educational program. UFOs are bad. If you see one, it's probably a communist plot or something like that. And I'm sure the communist nations said the exact same thing. It's probably an American plot. Ignore it or report it and then ignore it because we'll handle it. Criminy. It is believed that procurement of these cameras was partly the result of public pressure. Public pressure. Okay. With the poor results of the year-long Project Twinkle program of 24-hour instrumentation watch, 2 frames of film showing nothing distinguishable. A widespread program of sky watching at Twinkle. Come on, dude. Twinkle was meant to watch the sky. Oh, so sorry. Twinkle was meant to watch a given part of the sky for any foreign activity. A widespread program of sky watching would not be expected to yield much direct data of value. There was a considerable discussion of a possible sky patrol by amateur astronomer Hynek, J. Allen Hynek of Blue Book, and by wide-angle cameras. Page came up with a good idea. Holy and crap. How about that? Page actually came up with something. Okay, they both, Page and Robertson, agree that a considerable fraction, like 1/64th, of the sky is now and has been for many years under surveillance. Oh, probably. I'm sorry, I said 1/64th, didn't I? That's ridiculous. More like 1,064th of the sky, probably 1,064th of the sky to be realistic. A teeny tiny sliver is what I'm saying. If you do this and block out a piece of the sky, that's how much they're talking about. That is probably a fraction of millions. Anyway, although the attention of these astronomers is largely directed toward identified rather than unidentified objects, no case of any striking unidentified object is known to Doctors Page or Hynek. Huh, that's interesting. Such an object would most certainly be reported if found on patrol plates. That is, when our planes are doing air patrols around the country, they would probably catch something on their wing cameras. They either did and didn't report it, or didn't, and that's because they were face forward. And we're scanning everything around them, which is, anyway. Okay. So, Dr. Hynek further went on to say, if a program, I love Dr. Hynek, he's great. If a program of watching could be an adjunct, an additional piece of planned astronomical programs, little cost would be involved, and that the trained astronomical personnel might photograph a sighting of an actual, I paraphrase, an unidentified object. And then he goes on to list some of these programs. Harvard University, Yerkes Observatory, part of the University of Chicago, at Fort Davis, Texas, because when you think Fort Davis, Texas, you think Chicago. Chicago. I gave it a little accent there. Come on. University of Alaska, Ottawa, Palomar Observatory. Lick is literally that way. One of the very first observatories in America, if not the first. So, yeah, Lick Observatory. It's way up there to the top of Mount Hamilton. I've been there before. It is lovely, and they have the original telescope that Lick used too. Still, and it's still, the kids can look through it. It's amazing, especially considering that the technology is about 100 years old now, older. And then they got the brand new fanciful one that rotates and they can look at everything. It's really nice. But that's a lot of fun. Okay, and then they come up with this goofball freaking idea called radar problem through mutual interference, and maybe it was an issue back then. I would like to talk to Joe Montaldo about this. I wish I could have him on at a moment, but I can't, because he was a radar tech, among other things. The characteristic problems of radar operation were in a pulse or signal from station A may be picked up on the screen of station B. Shown as a high-speed track. Yes, but said high-speed track, if it's just the beam, would be consistent and repeated. And I shot down your stupid idea. Probably Page again, knowing him. The problem was underlined by information received indicating ADC concern. I forget ADC means what. I don't remember. In solving this problem for signal identification before service of use of very high-speed aircraft or guided missiles. 55 to 56. Never mind, this is a 1953 report. So they're already got high-speed aircraft ready to rock, as guided missiles as well. Probably well into, at or near ready to use. which makes sense as far as development goes. Dr. Berkner believed that, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, believed that one answer to his problem, and I'm reading this thing verbatim, I'm so sorry, was the use of a Doppler filter in the receiving circuit. Yeah, how about you run your, no, they already solved all that. Anyway, this gets very technical and kind of boring. Okay, then we come to stupid stuff. And I mean, it happens, but you're talking about muons, not actual. Anyway, they were picking up muon streams. They didn't know what they were back then. And it kept sending off ding, 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 little things at the Palomar Mountain Observatory. Cosmic ray counters went off scale for a few seconds. Well, the V of flying saucers was observed visually. Possibly related. I mean, if they're using a gravity field or an artificial gravity field as Bob Lazar has specified, makes sense. Then it goes on to say that the Los Alamos Bird Watchers Association experienced something similar when a cosmic ray coincidence counters behaved very, to use their word queerly, today we'd say oddly. Circuit diagrams and records were available for the latter, and Dr. Alvarez was quickly able to point out that recorded data were undoubtedly due to instrumental effects that would have been recognized as such by more experienced observers. So basically they said the bird watchers got it wrong. Who's to say that the birds weren't reacting to something else? That would be my input on that. Wow. And it just goes on. An education program. Every time I hear education program, I get scared. This is 1953. DDT was okay. Yipes. Like, have you seen the old ads for DDT? You can have your picnic and get sprayed with it directly, and nothing's going to happen to you. Horrible cancer comes along 40 years later. Whoops, I guess we were wrong. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. The panel's concept of a broad educational program and integrating efforts of all concerned agencies that it should have two major aims: training and debunking. Okay, I'm a paranormal investigator. Debunking, I'm all for calling a creaky pipe a creaky pipe instead of a ghost, just cuz. All right? When they say debunking, I get a little scared because you can loop a lot of things, sweep a lot of things under the debunking rug. Okay? Training would aim to... The training aim would result in proper recognition of unusually illuminated objects, balloons, aircraft, as well as natural phenomena. Meteors, fireballs, and mirages. Noctilucent clouds. Noctilucent clouds. Noctilucent clouds is an astronaut. Yeah. No, it isn't. Atmospheric phenomenon. Where there's a charge in a cloud, like a lightning cloud, that doesn't fork out. That doesn't cause lightning. It kind of buzzes. I've actually seen one myself. It was pretty cool. But it blinks out, blinks out, and then it eventually discharges. It's kind of interesting. But it noctiluminescent clouds. Noctilucent, rather, clouds. I gotta highlight that so you can see it. Yeah. Many levels of the education. So, yeah. Including radar operators, pilots, control tower operators, ground observing corps, officers enlisted in the military, and other stuff. Marked reduction in. Okay. This training should mark. You sons of. Anyway. This training should result in marked reduction in reports caused by misidentification and resultant confusion. The debunking, as I was saying before, or alluded to, the debunking aim would result in the reduction in public interest in flying saucers, which today evokes a strong psychological reaction. Yeah. I'm speechless right now. I mean, to put this out there, even as a supposition, is, excuse me, not a supposition, but a recommendation, is, at least by today's standards, irresponsible. Irresponsible. Sorry, I'm shifting my weight here because I am just utterly flabbergasted by this entire thing. Oh my gosh, and it goes on to say this education could be accomplished by mass media such as television, motion pictures, and popular articles. Predictive programming, kids. Predictive programming. Or programming in general. The basis of such education, oh gosh, I gotta highlight this too. The basis of such education would be actual case histories, which had been puzzling at first but later explained, or potentially, especially if it's an entertainment thing, I mean, you're gonna pass it off. Wow, that was a great story. Wouldn't that be weird if it were true? Kind of a thing. As in the case of conjuring tricks, there's much less stimulation if the secret is known. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I skimmed through most of this last night and I must have missed this because that is just frightening. Okay. Such a program should tend to reduce the current gullibility of the public, and consequently their susceptibility to clever hostile propaganda. Okay, that's interesting. They're saying the UFO thing is a communist propaganda plot. Given that it's 1953, they're not saying so here. Oh, though, check that. Next line. The panel noted that the general absence of Russian propaganda based on the subject with so many obvious possibilities for exploitation might indicate a possible Russian official policy. Wow. So they were definitely afraid of Russian propaganda and that the whole UFO thing was a psyop. Then there should have been jets in the air every single square meter of this country scouring the skies for Russian intelligence. But then that wastes our fuel, and we don't want to acknowledge that we fell for it. So I should say our fuel resources. Especially at the time. It was insane. You sons of... It was... okay, sorry. Again, I'm finally reading these things in detail on the air because that's super professional. It was felt strongly that psychologists familiar with the mass psychology, again a complete myth, should advise on the nature and extent of the program. I think we've all heard this name before, Dr. Hadley Cantrell, author of The Invasion from Mars. Oh, come on. Studying the psychology of panic Based on the radio series, kids. That's what he's talking about. Yeah, Orson Welles radio broadcast of 38. Has since performed advanced laboratory studies in the field of perception. Okay, here's the thing. I think I mentioned it. I'll mention it again because it's worth saying, especially now that we're reading it together. People tuned in late to the radio show. The radio show, Orson Welles and his admitted genius, used actual reporters as voices of the reporters in the field and in the newsroom of the show. Okay. There's a whole movie based on how they actually did the series, and it was received very well, believe it or not, but not by the people per se, but by the government, because they felt this was an example of mass hysteria. What it was, and it was technically mass hysteria, but what it was people reacting to incomplete information. Would you call that mass hysteria? Well, one guy did shoot a water tower thinking it was an alien vehicle. But here's the other thing. They knew when the show was coming on. They didn't consider it was a television show. They didn't even take commercial breaks. I think Wells paid them not to take commercial breaks. We'll be back right after this word from some toothpaste or whatever, which they did in the middle of the show. He paid them not to. And there's a huge deep conspiracy about that entire broadcast and the way it was performed and all that fun stuff. Put together, rather. So, while that was to call it mass hysteria is foolish. If you put together a program where you have personalities, radio personalities, by voice, telling you, even if it's in a scripted thing, okay, because they told the 6 o'clock news people to come on the show, read this report like you would normally. So they did. They know how to read a script, read a report, read the ticker tape. It was brilliant in that way. Brilliant, really. What an exercise, though. If you think about it, your brain starts spinning and you're thinking, oh my gosh, it was planned the whole time. Well, it was a show. Of course it was planned. But there were interested parties to see how it would work. They let, I don't think they had a federal communications something back then, but I think they had something similar before they called it the FCC in 38. Not by much, though. So this doctor who wrote the thing on mass hysteria, invasion from Mars, Cantrill, boy, did he capitalize on that, has since performed advanced laboratory studies in the field of perception. The names of Dr. Marquis of Michigan and Rostin, both are consultant psychologists. Also, someone familiar with mass communication techniques, perhaps an advertising expert. Wow, kids, look at that. Come on, would be helpful. Arthur Godfrey was mentioned as possibly a valuable channel of communication. Godfrey is a producer in radio in the day, I believe, and television. Yeah, Godfrey, reaching a mass audience of certain levels. Wow. Dr. Berkner suggested that the U.S. Navy, the ONR, Special Devices Center at Sands Point, Long Island, as a potentially valuable organization to assist in such an educational program. That's called brainwashing kids. Gosh. Ah. The Jim Handy Company, which made World War II training films, that's making sense. Was also suggested, as well as Disney. Oh, come on. For animated cartoons, Dr. Hynek suggested that the amateur astronomers in the U.S. might be a potential source of enthusiastic talent to spread the gospel, in quotes, of this mass disinformation psychological psyop. To cite the UFOs as a psyop and then create a secondary psyop to make U.S. witnesses, civilians, afraid to report, but they're gonna anyway. There'd be no blue book with Dr. Hynek forever if there hadn't been people coming out anyway. I don't want, and then they started, qualifying it. It's like, I don't want to sound like a kook, but their words. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the talk of the day in the 50s. I don't want to sound like a kook, but I saw something. There was a weird hairy guy. Maybe you should check it out. But people were told not to get involved at this point. And again, they were saying here in this report, short of bringing a dead alien body in front of the press, come on. Or a UFO they shot down. Again, very unlikely, but I'm speechless. The spread the gospel. It is believed that the business clubs, high schools, colleges, and television stations would all be pleased to cooperate in the showing of documentary-type motion pictures if prepared in an interesting manner via Walt Disney, via Jam Handy Company, via all these other things. The use of true cases showing first the mystery and then the explanation would be forceful. Wow. Be forceful. In other words, they're going to tell you what you're seeing. Again, brainwashing. Unfreaking conscionable. I mean, we're taking 1930s people and thinking 1950s people are like them. Because these guys were around in the 30s when all this craziness went down, and they think the same thing's applicable. Unbelievable. The only person on here that I know for a fact is redeemable is Alan Hynek. Why? Because he came out with a book and said, oh my gosh, I got to retract everything I said, starting with Hopkinsville. Well, not starting there, but he cites Hopkinsville as one of the things he had to retract all of his dismissiveness on. That is just irksome. And now they're talking about integrating ATIC, ATIP, and Arrow are basically the same thing going forward. Panel believes some of the expressions certainly required. In the road is stated exactly. Warrants a table will be required. Captain Rumbold of ATIC unofficially proposed. And this is basically how they implement that At the end of this time, the dangers related to flying saucers should have been greatly reduced. Okay, so they have a timeline put together. Training and debunking. Gee, come on, man. At the end of this time, I'm going to highlight that too. Right. At this time, the dangers related to flying saucers should have been greatly reduced, if not eliminated. Cooperation from other military services and agencies concerned. Federal civil defense, as an example, would be a necessity. What they ended up doing, though, later on, is completely killing the civil defense. Freaking believable. So they considered Trumpton, while they eliminated it from their list, it's significant. So, I mean, we have evidence. It's given to them. They dismiss it and they say, well, we need more evidence. And, well, they had Niagara following that, very similar to Trenton. Trenmonton. And they ignore that too. Pillow balloons at different distances. Oh my gosh, because they couldn't. Okay. Wow. I mean, wow. The panel took cognizance. Let's see. Unofficial investigating groups. Whoops. Come on. Anyway. The panel took cognizance of the existence of such groups as the Civilian Flying Saucer Investigators in Los Angeles and the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization in Wisconsin. It is believed that such organizations should be watched because of their potentiality to influence the mass thinking if widespread sightings should occur. Unfreaking conscionable. I mean, talk about controlling the narrative, man. I am. And they continue this. This, I think, is a starting point. Never mind, Blue Book's been in effect for forever. A starting point for this mass disinformation and poo-pooing of the UFO phenomena. And now here we are finally releasing all this because most of the people involved in this crap who we would love to yell at like I am now are dead. The consensus of the panel was based upon history of the subject that the number of sightings could be reasonably expected to increase again this summer. So the summertime brings out all the extra crazy, apparently. Unfrickin' F.B. Durant. I think he was a magi guy. I'm going to highlight that part. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been eye-opening, to say the least. Frustrating, to say even more. I got one person watching me right because we read. He just read the thing. But I got listeners out there because Heidi's on. That's cool. Thank you so much. So we're going to close this down. I'm beyond upset at what is effectively the start in 1953, give or take, of the UFO mass disinformation campaign brought on by our own government and taken on because we were the most powerful country and still are, which you can take some pride in if you want. I do, believe it or not, despite all this. And everyone following in the footsteps of the most powerful country in the world, because I don't know why. Honestly, we can debunk, we can scare them into doing it. We can say, oh, France doesn't know what they're talking about. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tim Sudano. This has been Paranormal Insight, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time, and thanks to all of you, rather, I can't talk, for watching and listening. We'll see you next week on Paranormal Insight. If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com.